God bless you. And we are teaching about the Most High God, seeing the Almighty. And we are seeking that we can penetrate any kind of obstacle, that we might come to know God in a very effective manner in our lives. And this lesson that we are working with at this moment is called Searching for the Most High. And beginning in the middle of page 11, we were speaking in our last lesson regarding a very remarkable person. It's amazing how in all centuries it seems like some remarkable person emerges. And this is a very remarkable person in that she was a queen over an African kingdom, and she had heard that a man named Solomon, who was also a king, and his kingdom was over Israel, and that he had information about the Most High. So she came trying to buy it. She wanted to purchase it. And we were reading that in 1 Kings chapter 10, beginning in verse 1, that when the Queen of Sheba heard of the famous Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, you see. Now, if you don't see why she came, then you'll miss the whole story. She didn't come to see his beautiful robes and to see his lovely palaces and eat food at his table. She heard that it related to the mighty God. So she came to prove him with hard questions. She was a clever person, and she wanted to say, now, how did you find out this God? How does this God manifest himself to me? Show me how you worship this God. And so she was wanting to find out how it all worked. And so verse 2 says, she came to Jerusalem with a very great train. That means that her animals might have stretched out from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, 5 miles. That she came with a very great train. And it says she had camels that bear spices and very much gold. Notice the very much gold. Precious stones. She was going to buy this thing. She was going to purchase it. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. Now you see, if you didn't catch that first bit there, that she came to know about God, all in her heart might mean how do you make a donkey work better? But that wasn't what she came after, to make donkeys work better. She had come to know about this Jehovah God, and she asked her questions relative to that. And then verse 3 says, Solomon told her all her questions. Now that's what we want you to be able to do. And anybody that says anything about God, say, I got the answer. Glory be to God. And I'm glad to share it with you. He answered all her questions, and there was not anything hid from the king. Isn't that beautiful? When she asked a hard question, he just opened his heart and said, I want to tell you the whole thing. I am sure she sat spellbound when he began in Genesis and told about Adam and brought the thing up to the flood, and then came on up to his own lineage through Abraham, and then his own father David. I imagine she got into a pantomime that she never forgot the longest day she lived. Said, I have never heard a story like this story. Well, the history of God's people is the only story there is anyway. It's the great story of the human race. So Solomon told her, answered all of her questions, and he didn't hide anything that he didn't tell her. Then verse 4, and when the Queen of Sheba had seen all of Solomon's wisdom, regarding God, mind you, regarding God, and the house, you see, that he had built, she saw that temple overlaid with gold, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendants of his ministers, and their apparel, and his cupbearers, and his ascent, the way he walked, by which he went up into the house of the Lord, ringing of bells, playing of tambourines, blowing of the horns, as he went up into the presence of the Most High God. So she was amazed by his ascent, by which he went up into the house of Jehovah. There was no more spirit in her. No more spirit. That beat idols all to pieces. And there was no more spirit in her. She had found the right way. She had found the truth, and she had found what her soul was desiring. She had received now a revelation of the Most High. And I am very confident that her whole nation in Africa, and they say that in Ethiopia they still have the church that came first down in the Old Testament, and then they were in Jerusalem when the church was born, and they went back into Africa, and that all dates back to this queen that went down and discovered the Most High God for their people there in North Africa. So her whole nation, Africa, became the recipients of God's blessing because of her search for the Most High. I wish to assure you, in your search for God, it's going to bless many. Yeah, it won't only bless you. When you come to a knowledge of God, you're going to awaken other people, and other people are going to get excited about your knowledge of God. Now, go to point number 10, please, and we show you something in the New Testament. This is from the Old Testament. The Gospel of Matthew tells us of the Magi who came from the east seeking the Most High. They came seeking the Most High. They weren't on a pleasure trip. They came seeking the Most High. Now, the nation of Iran, which was formerly Persia, has 3 cities named after these 3 men who were actually kings, who came to seek the Most High God, again in Israel. They crossed the desert, they crossed the mountains in pursuit of a certain kind of knowledge of the Most High God. In Bethlehem, they gazed in wonder as they brought their expensive gifts to the Son of the Most High God, and the Son of the Most High God. What a beautiful little point in history of 3 kings that were willing to give lavishly to get to know more about the Most High God, and that His Son would be born to save the world, and they had a part in it. Now, men with burning hearts have isolated themselves in vast mountain areas alone, seeking for the Most High God. If you were to go to Mount Sinai, as we have gone, and some others that are here, you'll see caves all in the mountains. I mean, you could spend the rest of your life going in and out of those caves. And sometimes it would take 2 and 3 days to get up to it. They're way high in the side of the mountain. They still tell us that today there are men in those caves seeking the Most High. There are men there, monks, seeking after the Most High, isolated from the total of humanity. And there they are seeking the Most High. And so this quest has never failed, and it has never ceased. Men seeking after God, men with burning hearts, isolated themselves, gone into the fastness of mountain areas alone, that they might seek the Most High. Others with deep convictions have closeted themselves in caves of the earth, seeking after the Most High. History records others who with great determination have undertaken long and hazardous journeys, very great distances, seeking after the Most High. So our quest today, our seeking today, is not unusual. It is something that has gone from generation to generation. God put it in our hearts. You're in this class right now because God put it in your heart to learn something about the Most High God. You didn't come to learn anything from Hollywood. You didn't come to learn anything about music. You didn't come to learn anything about art. You came here to seek the God that made the whole thing. And you're determined to come into a rare and magnificent knowledge of the Most High God. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it, and I don't care what God does. If He knocks us all on the floor, I'll get down there too and say, I want to know God. We're not here to study only. We're here to open up ourselves. You know, we're here to let our entire being within us be poured out and seek in the seeking of the Most High God. A story I'd like to tell you is point number 12. It was a very exciting episode in my life, and was so strong that, you see, I can't forget it. Now let's look at it. I was on a vessel, and I was traveling the inward passage to Alaska, leaving out of Canada, and going up their coastline, and then going on into Alaska in what they call the inland passage. You're not out to sea, and you are always in closed waters, going from Vancouver to Juneau. It's 1,000 miles or more up there, and it's one of the most beautiful voyages on the face of this earth. And I was going up to live in Alaska and to raise up some new churches there. One night after dinner, I was pacing the deck, which is about the only thing you can do for exercise. And I saw the captain of the ship, and I'd spoken to him before, and so I joined the captain in the walk. So you'll notice that if you've been to sea, that they usually walk in pairs. Almost nobody walks along. They join somebody so they can chat as they pace the decks, because you don't want to jump overboard. You know, it's better to stay on board. And so you just walk the decks. Aren't you glad we got airplanes? I used to spend about a third of my life on those things. I just thank God for airplanes. And so I joined him. And during the walk, I turned to the captain. I said, Captain, and these exact words I said, Captain, regarding Jesus, whose son is he? You want to get the devil stirred up, just ask him that. Now, you can stir up the devil if you will just ask that question. The captain, dressed in his magnificent white uniform, he'd just been to dinner. He was visibly shaken, abruptly shaken. He just wasn't expecting that on a passenger on that boat. He stopped under the bright northern star. He raised his hand and he said, Sir, those stars are my God. I placed my hand gently on his shoulder and I said, Captain, sir, do not ever forget that it was my God who made your gods, and that my God is the Most High. Well, seeing that we broke fellowship, we left him at that point. He didn't want to believe in the Most High God. But there was a man, he said, for 50 years. He had rode the waves 50 years. And that his God were these stars, because he directed his ship through those stars. He would get his sextant out and he would shoot the stars, and he guided his ship through the stars. And he says, my God is those stars. Well, they're made of gas, and they're made of particles, of materials and metals and so forth, and that's all they are. I'm glad that we have a living God, just our same size. We look like him and he looks like us, and we're going to get to know him better every day throughout eternity, and I am looking forward to it. Another further illustration of this was when I was going around the world, and I had left San Francisco on my way down to Australia. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, I was talking to two passengers on there who were British people, a man and his wife, and they lived in Australia, and they had been to England. Now they were coming back home to Australia. I spoke to them about my salvation and about my healing and about how I love God and serve God and the little knowledge that I have of the Most High. They were awfully irritated. I just couldn't imagine anyone being so irritated when I talked about God. They were standing on the deck at the time, and the husband, looking at the briny waters of the South Pacific Ocean, said in a strong, loud voice, "These waters are my God." And I looked down, and there were a few little waves down there, and a porpoise playing off out there. And that was his God. That's all the God he had. He happened to be a very brilliant professor. You see, his knowledge had not brought him to a reality of knowledge of God. And so I replied to him that God was kind of salty. And it looked like God was nervous the way the water was moving around. And couldn't be very responsive to any need that I have. Those people did not talk with me for the rest of the journey. They told others, "Don't talk to that boy. There's something wrong with him." Here are people who are worshiping the sea, and they're professors. They're what we call agnostics. And they will not bow their hearts to say, "I would wish to seek." Man in his haughtiness, you see, doesn't want to know God. He wants to think that he's God. And what most pagan religions will bring you to is just humanism, that you're your own God. I don't accept that. I don't feel like I'm a God. God would be in a poor way if I was a God. I'm glad that we can reach out beyond ourselves to discover the one that we see his effects. We see his effects in the beautiful flowers. We see his effects in the beautiful stars and the We see all the things that he has created, and we know that these things couldn't be if he wasn't there. And so we're reaching out to know the one that created what we can see. We're looking into the invisible to understand the visible. And we're believing God that every day we shall know him better. And number 14, on page 13, this happened when I was in Java, and I was visiting the palace of a Raja, who is something like a king in his small domain. And you could go through there for a small fee and look around. So we had paid at the gate, and we were inside the palace. And magnificent palace, beautiful buildings, and the Rajas are very wealthy. And then I visited the area, the temple area that was in his palace. And it was a very beautiful, magnificent temple inside the palace grounds. You couldn't, average people never did see it. And it might be that if you didn't look just right, they wouldn't let you in anyway. They were letting respectable people see the riches of the Raja and to see his temple, which it took a half a day just to look through the place. And in the temple, I saw a god that was made up of arms and hands. I saw another one of these just recently in a store for sale, and that was down in Singapore. This same, it's a Buddhist god, and so I saw it. And I looked at this god made up of arms and hands, and I said, my, he's the handiest god I ever saw. And looking closer, I saw that one of the hands had been broken and fallen off into the corner, because it must have had almost 50 of these. They were all over him. With my interpreter, I called the temple priest over, and I said, sir, we're waiting here to see a miracle. Your God lost a hand, and I'm sure that hand will jump back on there real soon. This priest very sadly shook his head and said, no, sir, that won't happen. You know, he said, I created and made this God back here in the workshop, and I painted him just like you see him now. And he says, I know that I'll have to put that hand back on myself, because I'm the one that made that hand, and I'll have to put it back on. Says, I'll take it back into the workshop, and I'll get the hand back on there. I laid my hand over on his shoulder, and I said, sir, through my interpreter, I said, my God that I serve, that I love, my God created all the materials on the face of this earth, which means that my God, he made your God. The man was visibly shaken. To think that somebody knew more about God than he knew. He was visibly shaken. And as I continued to walk through the Raja's palace, they were hauling this plaster of Paris, brightly painted goddess, all the way into the workshop. How many are glad that we don't have to take the Most High into a workshop? Yeah, going to work over my God. Yeah, put another hand on him. The Buddhist priest had knowledge of a material that he had fashioned with his own hands. That's all he had knowledge of. Yet he would beg, now you got to know this, demon spirits from the spirit world to manifest in this idol. Now that's where Westerners get food. They beg demon spirits to possess these idols and to do something for the people. So when something happens to people, they think that God did it, and it's a demon spirit working and functioning through the idol that causes it to be done. So the people will believe in that idol. The Most High is available for all who will search after him. And we must know that God is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to everlasting life. And so we want each one of us to reach up and reach out for God, not for anything material, but for the reality of the Most High. In your lesson on page 14, knowing the Most High. Now, we have taken you very tenderly with our introduction, which introduces you to what we mean by the Most High, and then for searching for the Most High, knowing the Most High. And so let us look into that aspect. And so in our lessons 1 and 2, we were in search of the Most High. In this lesson, we shall deal with knowing him. And Judges 2 and 10, it says, and also that generation were gathered under their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, or Jehovah, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. Now that's a sad thing. It would be a sad thing for your children to grow up in this society and have no knowledge of God and what God has done for you. And we've almost missed that. Our forefathers that pioneered this country, they had relationships with God that possibly some of us don't know anything about. And they were not able to pass it down through to us. And if you're not careful, you will let your children play these mechanical games and read literature that they shouldn't be reading on demon power, and you will let them grow up not knowing God. We had a meeting in this room here a few years ago, and a lot of high school students came. And we had kids that were graduating from high school that year who came and sat on that floor right down there, girls sitting there barefooted, just looking up at the speaker. And I talked to one of those girls, and right here in this place, living in this city, it was the first time she had ever entered a church. She had been born and reared in our city and had never entered into any kind of worship place. And so they were beginning at zero regarding the Most High God. You and I must not only obtain truth, we must disseminate truth. We must give it out. We must, with all of our heart, share everything we have, and let the world come to know that we do know the Most High God. See, in Israel there came a time that another generation came, and generations come very quickly, and they did not know the Most High God. All right. According to the above scripture, a new generation came who did not know God. There was electricity in the air from the beginning, but man didn't know it. You see, he didn't use it. When it was discovered, man began to use the power of electricity. Man had to discover it first, so in every generation, man must rediscover the Most High God in order to use his power. And if we don't discover the Most High God, we can't get the benefits of the Most High God. And so we pursue these truths because we're after something, and that is the knowledge of him and the power of him to be manifest in our lives. When we look into the Word, we find a man like Ezekiel. He was a person who sought the Most High, and he came to understand and to see and to realize the magnificence of the Most High. In Ezekiel 1:26, he says, and above the firmament I saw, and that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness of an appearance of a man above upon it. He was looking straight into God, you see. And I saw as the color of amber, as appearance of fire round about and within it. From the appearance of his loins went even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward, I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain. Now he saw God. If you want what God looks like, from his loins downward is fire, from his loins upward is fire. He is a living fire that does not hurt, burn, or consume. When Moses saw it in the tree, it did not burn up the tree. It was a glorious illumination. And he said he had seen it. As appearance of the brightness round about, this was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of Jehovah. When I saw it, I fell on my face. And that's what I was telling you, that when we really see God as we'd like to see him, we will fall on our faces. And I heard a voice that spoken to me. And so he saw God and he heard him speak. Ezekiel did not read about the Most High. He had a personal knowledge and strong memories of his encounter with the Most High. That is what you and I are seeking in this class. That's what you and I are reaching out for. Another person that we have mentioned in other lessons is a man named King Solomon. He saw the majesty of the Most High. He saw it at his temple, that God had told him just how to build it and just how to make it and just what he was to use to make it, the silver and the gold. He saw it all light up supernaturally with a dazzling brilliance. He saw that. In 2 Chronicles 7:1, it says, when Solomon had made an end of praying, the fire came down from heaven. Supernaturally, fire came down from heaven. It consumed the burnt offerings and the sacrifice, and the glory of God filled that house, the temple. I mean, just what Ezekiel saw, you know, in that vision, it came into the house, and he saw it in the house. And the priest could not enter. That's something. The priest could not enter into this house of Jehovah because the glory of the Lord had filled that place. My, what would happen if the glory of God filled this place? Whew. The people couldn't even come in the door. They'd have to stand outside. They'd like to have to worship out here. I'm scared to go in there. Wouldn't that be something? Now he saw this. So there have been those that have known the glory of God and have known the presence of the Most High.